I very clearly remember the day where I was sitting in the lobby, and I was playing with a deck of cards, and he walks over and he looks at it and he goes, "Don't do it like that. Do it like this." And I remember going, "Huh? Okay." And then he's like, "That's good. Now do this instead of that." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then he started teaching me.
Welcome to the Unstuck Career Podcast with your host, Ken Williams. Each week, we move along your path to possibility so you can finally have the life you want. Let's learn how to deal with people you never wanted to be friends with together so you can become unstuck and unstoppable in your career and life.
Welcome back to another episode of the Unstuck Career Podcast. I have with me, this is a new experience for me because I have in person, we're in the same, this is me over here.
Yeah.
I have the amazing Barry. And Barry is somebody that, where did we even meet? Was it Toastmasters?
Yeah.
A lot of years ago.
A lot of years ago.
And we have kind of seen each other on social for a lot of years. I knew Barry before he had the handlebar mustache. But Barry is a magician. And I thought of connecting with him because, and he lives locally, which is nice, because he's done something that I thought about doing when I was 11 years old, and that is performing for money. And I did one show, and that was it. But I've been a fan of magic, and Barry's been just a fantastic contributor to the magic community in the Indianapolis area. So I wanted to bring him on the podcast and talk about the idea that there might be an opportunity to do something beyond a traditional 9-to-5. And when we met in Toastmasters, where were you working at the time?
I was working for Ascension Health, which is, at the time, I was working almost exclusively for St. Vincent.
Okay.
Their parent company's Ascension, and now I no longer work there. But in that role, it was that kind of work now serves like the entire nation of Ascension hospitals.
Okay. And at what point, how did you get into magic? It's something I think a lot of people get into as kids, and then it kind of fades. What was your experience?
So I'm a little different than most people. You go and you talk to a lot of the magicians, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I started doing magic when I was 6," and I had the normal experience that most people do of doing magic when you're a kid. We would go to the library, and I remember checking out the videos that we had, which is Tony Hassini, and that was just a riot to watch because Tony Hassini is a colorful character, and I've only seen those videos. I don't know him or anything like that. I've never seen him do like a live magic show or anything, but the videos were hilarious to my brother and I. And then my grandfather, who passed away when I was very, very young, but I picked up one of his magic books, and I still have it. Learned a little bit from that, but I didn't do much. Then when I got to college, I had the community advisor on my floor was a very accomplished card magician. And I knew enough from the studying that I had done to sort of be able to duplicate what he was doing, but not well.
Okay. And
I think ultimately what happened, because I bugged him to teach me, and he wouldn't do it, and he wouldn't do it. And I think at some point he looked at me and he went, "Man, he's ruining all my tricks. I better get him doing it right." And so I very clearly remember the day where I was sitting in the lobby, and I was playing with a deck of cards, and he walks over and he looks at it and he goes, "Don't do it like that. Do it like this." And I remember going, "Huh? Okay." And then he's like, "That's good. Now do this instead of that." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then he started teaching me, and he was a senior. I was a freshman, so I only got him to teach me for like 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
But when he graduated, he introduced me to his mentor, and then I learned from him, and I met some other people that did magic. And then when I went to get my master's degree at the University of Tennessee, I joined the magic club there, and I just started rolling. Not to get too in depth, but what I've come to find out, I think where a lot of it comes from, though, is I love theater.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in college, I would do all the musicals. I met my wife in a dance troupe. My high school didn't have any theater, so I did the show choir that we had. I loved being on stage, and what I've come to find out is doing magic gives me that opportunity to be on stage, but it's a lot easier from a logistical standpoint because I can practice at home by myself and do a show, as opposed to when I try to do a theater production, with my family and my day job and all that. The theater production requires at least a month of everybody getting together 4, 5, 6 nights a week, running lines and staging and all that. And that's the minimum.
Yeah.
I can't make that kind of time work right now. Hopefully in the next few years, as my kids get older, I'll be able to get into doing something like that. I've tried, but this is my opportunity to continue to be up on stage and in the theater, and do it myself, in a way that I can manage with my schedule.
Yeah. So do you remember the moment that you decided, I want to make more than a hobby out of this?
No, it's kind of happened accidentally, and I guess partially out of necessity. And I think the way that it really happened is I used to wait tables when I was in college, and when I would wait tables, I would do magic to try to get my tips to go up.
Nice.
And I don't know how well it worked. Might be my glowing personality, but I would do magic. And then when I went to my first year of graduate school, which was somewhere else, I didn't move to go to my first year of graduate school. So I couldn't have a job anymore because I was a graduate student, and they had rules against that sort of thing. Okay. But they would let me get away with performing. And so I would, because it's kind of a hobby, but people would give me money. So I started working for tips. And then I didn't do a whole lot of stage stuff, though. I did close-up magic mostly. Okay. When I got to indie, that's when I really started to get into doing more of the stage stuff, and found out that works really well for me, probably from doing so much theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it really is, it's a theatrical.
It's very much a theatrical thing. I mean, so it depends on what you're looking for.
Right.
There are, and I can think, I won't name names, but I can think of some magicians that from a technical aspect are just phenomenal. If you're just watching what they're doing, it's just downright impossible.
Right.
But they're not that exciting to watch.
Right.
And I love doing the technical stuff.
Yeah.
But when I go to do a show, I'm worried about the way that it comes across. So sometimes I'll do magic that may or may not fool people, but it's fun to watch.
Right.
And so I'll do that. In fact, the trick that I'm best known for is my yoga card trick. And essentially, have you seen me do this?
Yes, I have.
Okay, yeah. I have somebody pick a card, and I do it in all these different yoga poses, but ultimately I stand on my head and I find the card with my feet.
Yeah.
And from a magic standpoint, I mean, it's a regular here, pick a card, is this your card kind of trick.
Yeah.
From a magic standpoint, there's nothing to it. And
Right.
I fully expect anybody with a low-level knowledge of magic to
One of those basic
I know how he did that. Yeah, it's not that complicated. But it's just plain fun to watch.
Right. See an amazing berry on his head.
Exactly. It's weird. It kind of squicks some people out, having to put the cards in between my feet and and I've built an entire story around it and stuff like that. So I love the really difficult magic, but yeah, that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
Especially if somebody's going to hire you to do magic. What they want is they want their audience entertained. You know?
Right.
Same thing with when you watch like a historical documentary on TV or something like that. You want the history right. Don't get me wrong.
That's right.
But if they just focus on the history, it's boring and people turn it off.
Yeah.
They want the drama in there as well.
The story. And,
exactly. So that's why it's based on a true story. You don't want facts to get in the way.
That's right. Or at least the inconvenient facts.
Exactly.
So before we started recording, you were telling me about your experience at it was the Indy Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So talk about that, how that kind of played out and how that kind of propelled things for you.
Sure. I don't think I'd been in Indy very, very long at that point. And at the time, you know what? I was comfortable on stage, but I don't really feel like I had much of a character. I had a name that I performed as, but I would get up there and just wear basic business casual kind of clothes. And that year, it was uncharacteristically warm for February. It was still cool out. It was probably in the 50s, something like that. But it wasn't so cold that I had to bundle up. Unlike
sometimes winter in Indianapolis is
brutal.
Yeah. It'll be weeks before we get above freezing.
Yeah. When we did the NCAA football finals here, I did the same thing where I was performing out on the street, and I couldn't get anybody to stop and watch a card trick because they wanted us outside. And, you'd walk up to somebody and you'd go, "Hey, can I show you some magic?" They'd be like, "I don't think so." It's literally 12 degrees outside and It's slightly raining. I'm going inside. I don't care how good your magic is.
Yeah.
So, but for the Super Bowl, it was uncharacteristically warm. And so I decided that I didn't have to wear a coat and everything, but I wanted to stay warm enough. So I decided to put on a suit. And to keep my head warm, my wife had bought me a fedora. And so I wore the fedora as well. And what ended up happening is any other time I'd performed magic, I would do magic for people. And then when I would stop, I'd walk down the street. I looked like a normal guy. Didn't have the handlebar mustache. Looked like a normal guy. Nobody noticed anything.
Right.
Wearing the hat and the suit, when I would walk down the street, over and over, people would be like, "Hey, it's the magic guy. Hey, it's him." They recognized me, not because they recognized my face, but they recognized the hat more than anything else. And that's when I realized, and I think somebody had told me this before, but it's one of those things that just the switch didn't flip.
It doesn't
until people can tell you over and over again, and sometimes it's just you got to experience it for yourself. And that's what happened with this. I dressed up, people recognized who I was, and I was like, "Oh, this is the character," And so to this day, I still perform wearing a suit, even when it's 100 degrees outside. I'll wear a full suit and I wear the fedora. It's part of the character. And then I've added this as well, the handlebar mustache, which I think adds a lot to it personally.
Yeah.
So,
well, even without the hat, I look at you and I think magician.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so
either magician or I'm going to tie a damsel to the railroad tracks, one or the other.
That's right. So is that what kind of launched your side gig as a magician, or was it a side gig, or was it?
I mean, it's been gradual, and it comes and goes. But it's just been, working for tips here and there. And then, at some point I stood up a website, which is not hard for me to do. I'm a web developer, so, I could create. Yeah. I'm not particularly good at making things pretty, but I can write the code. So I can make the website happen. It just doesn't look great, and just slowly growing things over time. I'm at a point now, like I said, I'm a web developer, looking at the landscape. I don't know if AI is going to take my job.
Right.
It's not good at my job at this point. But 5 years down the line, maybe it is good.
Yeah.
And so I am trying to put a little bit more into like advertising, and I'm not looking to replace my job in any way, shape, or form, but the things that happen that cause programmer to go away are very different than the things that happen that cause magician to go away.
This is true.
And vice versa. So when the market's up for one, it's not necessarily up for the other, and vice versa. So, and that's also one of the nice things about being a magician with AI. A lot of what makes magic is that it's being done by an imperfect human being.
Yeah.
If, for instance, for a magic trick, actually, I saw Justin Willman. He's got a special on Netflix now. And I haven't seen it on Netflix, but I think I saw it live from what I understand. And when I saw it live, he went through the audience and said, "What's your zip code?" And somebody would say a zip code, and he'd go, "That's Buffalo Creek, Oregon." And then, "What's your zip code?" What's that?
I've seen the video.
You've seen the video?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And it like literally 50 people, one right after the other. They said their zip code. He told them what their town was. And then later on in the show, he repeated back every single zip code that he had heard. I'll be honest, I don't know how he did it.
Right.
Great trick. If a computer does it, nobody cares.
Right.
It
looks so good though.
It does. But it only works because it's being done by an imperfect human being. And so that's one of the things that's nice about magic is no matter how good AI gets, it's not going to be able to replace magicians.
Right.
And I also think there's going to be, this is my own personal quest, since COVID and with smartphones and with AI, we're becoming an increasingly disconnected society. You don't see people face to face as much anymore. People work from home, which I have no problem with working from home, but we don't connect face to face as much anymore.
Right.
To me, magic is one of those things that is, you can watch videos of it, but it is unique in person.
Yes.
It's a totally different experience, and I think it does a great job of really pulling people together because you'll do, especially close-up magic, you'll do close-up magic and everybody's leaning in together, and I try to make sure I involve as many people as possible. So, take the coins, you hold on to those, you hold this one. Well, now these two people that don't know each other have something in common. Right. Do they go off and carry on a conversation? I doubt it, probably not. But I think it really kind of creates something, and I think I like magic, and I think it does good things for the world that we live in at this point. It's probably me inflating my own ego. What I do is extremely important. It's card tricks, but
it's card tricks. But so a couple questions that I'm just curious. And Barry and I have not talked in person for a decade, maybe.
That's probably true.
It's been a long time. So I don't know the answer to this, so I'm not feeding him something that's going to sound great. Maybe it will. Who knows? But so why do you do it? Why do you do the magic? And then I've got another question that'll come behind that, depending on how you answer that question.
So I have heard on more than one occasion people that perform for a living don't do so because they want to. They do so because they have to.
Right.
It's hardwired into them. And if I go more than a month without doing a show, I get an itch. Mm-hmm. I just have an insatiable need to get up in front and do something. And I know they say that it's one of the biggest fears that people have is being up in front of an audience. And I'll be honest, I've been doing this for 28 years, I think. I still get nervous in front of a lot of audiences before I go on.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's always kind of funny. I'll find myself, especially if I'm being paid particularly well, or it's a particularly large audience, or it's going to be on TV or something like that. I find myself going, why do I do this to myself? I hate this. And as soon as I get the first laugh out of the audience, all that falls away.
Yeah.
And I have the absolute best time that I can being up in front of the audience. And then after I get off stage, I always get super self-critical. That part didn't go right. Why would I say something so stupid?
Right.
The kinds of things that only I recognize is not going perfect. But I just, honestly, I largely do it for myself. It's nice to get paid for it.
Sure.
But there are probably better ways to get paid. This is just what I just need to do it.
Yeah.
It's built into my DNA. So,
which is interesting. I think one of the things that I see a lot with the people that I interact with, the people that I meet, that I talk to, they don't easily respect that part of themselves.
mm-hmm.
They're in the life that they have kind of dropped into, and so that's one of the things that I think is really interesting about why you do it, because it is not something that there are things that I do because I absolutely love it, and it's 100% self-serving. And the great thing is it benefits other people as well. You have people that are entertained. You have people that are amazed, and I would imagine that you have people after performances come up and they tell you how amazing you are, and that's so amazing when that happens. So thank you for the honesty on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's entirely self-serving. I mean, when you talk about people come up and they go, "That was incredible. I absolutely loved that." Man, that's the least. I mean, that's all about me, to be perfectly honest. I am. I don't know if egocentric's the right word, but and I shouldn't say this out loud, but I like having my ego stoked.
But we all do.
Yeah, that's true. We all do.
You're honest about it. Not
I
everybody's
am.
honest about
I'm
it.
very honest about it. My wife reminds me of the fact all the time.
Oh man.
I won't let her see the podcast. Don't worry. No. Just
Might
kidding.
be a good idea.
But yeah, it is. It's a lot of it is. I'm stuck in my own ego. I enjoy it. I'm glad other people like it.
Yeah.
If other people didn't like it, it would not be fun. But that, and then I guess it comes back to, like we were talking about earlier, when I'm on stage, it's all about the performance. It's not about the technical difficulty of it.
Right.
That's my favorite part of it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. So since you're still in a 9 to 5, you're doing magic on the side.
Mm-hmm.
How has that, and I want to be vague in how I ask the question, because I'm not leading to an answer, but there's something, I have an assumption, and I'm trying to confirm my assumption without telling you what the assumption is. Has the fact that you have this part of your life that lights you up, and as you talk about it, we can see it, that you just radiate this joy, has that had any impact on other aspects of your life, relationships, career, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, it's like the hat and the mustache. When you are a software developer, people have expectations, and they all seem to be the same. What's the difference between one software developer and another software developer? Not a whole lot,
Exactly.
I mean, yes, there is, but you can lump them all into the same category and they all feel the same.
Right.
I don't think I fit into that category anymore. In fact,
No.
It's kind of frustrating, because I will be, I like to think I'm very good at my job.
Mm-hmm.
I can be very professional, I want people to respect my opinion and things like that. And I sometimes feel like it gets undermined a little bit when my VP comes in and introduces me as the magician. It's like, yes, but that's not the role that I'm here for.
I do
today.
magic with your
Exactly. But they remember me.
Yeah.
It's something I have on my resume. Because I don't know. It's been a while since I've really applied for a job, but getting that interview, I feel like I do great whenever I get into an interview. Sometimes it's hard to get that. I feel like that's just one of those things that stands out. Somebody's reading through and goes, yeah, he can do React. Yeah, he can do C#, blah, 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 blah. Professional magician. Well, if we interview him, at least it'll be fun, Right. I mean, so yeah, that's all very useful, and then I try to use it to have good relationships with coworkers and stuff like that. And I don't think most of the time it's not intentional from people because it feels wrong, but people help people they like.
Yes.
And I'm not doing that. That's not why I do this. So let me be very clear about that. I'm not
It
like,
would be
let me entertain you so that you'll like me and do me favors later. That's not in any way, shape, or form my intent, but it's beneficial,
right.
Because it's beneficial that people remember who I am. It's beneficial that people associate positive memories with me so that when I show up, they don't go, I'm going to do whatever I can to get rid of this guy.
Right.
They have the opposite reaction to that. It's like, I enjoy talking to this person. This person is interesting. I'm willing to help this person because of that. So, and you did. I don't know if you still do Toastmasters or not, but
I have not for a long time.
Okay, me neither. But I mean, Toastmasters is all about that interpersonal communication and stuff like that. And those are the little things that happen all the time. And it just I don't know. I think it makes a huge difference. Just trying to be, really what it comes down to most of the time is just trying to be nice to people. But one of the ways I'm nice to people is with card tricks. So.
Magic.
Exactly.
I think, and that answer is so much better than what I was hoping it would be.
Oh, okay.
No, because I think that I was responding to a comment on TikTok last night that just the darkness of some people's lives that I had posted a video just asking, do you experience the Sunday scaries? Do you feel tension, anxiety, stress during the weekend? And how much of the weekend is getting eaten up by that because you're worried about going back to work on Monday? And I've experienced it, so I understand it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it's required. I don't think that it has to be that way. And I think that when you have an outlet, when you have a part of your identity, and I'm going to call it identity because I think it is, when you have a part of yourself, your life, that is that interesting, that exciting, that joyful, that entertaining, that beneficial to other people, I have to believe that that bleeds into other aspects of life. And if you don't have that, then the only thing that you do have to bleed into other areas of your life is your sucky job.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to somebody a little bit ago who, I see it all the time, that my job is draining my energy, and so now my relationships suck, and now my health, I can't keep up with taking care of myself from a physical or mental health standpoint. And so the purpose of this is not, hey, everybody should go buy a magic book and start.
No, absolutely not.
Because number one, not everybody's into it. Number two, it is the technical skill is incredible. And I have some, I'll call them physical defects that have prevented me from being the kind of magician that I would have wanted to be.
Yeah.
I have, for example, I have gaps in between my fingers. So if I were to palm a card, you could see it.
Interesting. I've never seen that before.
I can't palm a card. I could develop the skill, but you would see it through my hand. And so
Don't want to get too much into it, but there was actually a magician by the name of Max Malini. He was a very small man, tiny hands. The cards were literally smaller or bigger than his hands were.
Okay.
So he would think he couldn't palm a card either, but he managed to do it all the time. So
interesting.
Don't think that.
Great lesson.
Yeah. So what it comes down to is, yes, if you palm a card and you show people your hand like that, then yes, they can see the card. But this is. This is a way. Actually, this is one of the things that if I were to ever do like a motivational talk with magic, this is one of the things I would teach. It's not they could see it in your hand. You're absolutely right if they're looking at your hand.
Right.
But what you have to do is you have to learn how to do it in such a way that they don't even think to look at your hand.
Right.
Because the gaps aren't that big. It's not like your hand changes color entirely. There's just a tiny bit that if somebody looks closely, they can see it.
Yeah.
But if you can keep them from looking at it, then it doesn't matter. And that's so the thing that I was talking about teaching is, in a lot of ways, reality doesn't matter.
Right.
What ends up mattering is the way that people perceive reality, because that's what people make decisions on.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's important to recognize for a number of different things, because a lot of times, we find ourselves going, that's not fair.
Right.
Well, yeah, sure. You look at the way that things come together and it's not fair, but how did the other person perceive it? What were they seeing? And so when you look at it from their perspective, you go, okay, so yeah, it wasn't fair. Yeah, they made the wrong decision, but from their perspective, it was reasonable. And so then when you start to think like that, then you start looking at yourself and you're going, okay, how do I show them that what I think is the right thing to happen is the right thing for them to do too, And I feel like, man, I'm getting so off track. This is going to be such a wandering.
And I'm sitting here spinning on the fact that I'm one of the things that I teach, preach, shout, proclaim, whatever you want to call it, is exactly what you just said. Reality doesn't exist. At least the way that we perceive reality, that's more real. And so I'm sitting here thinking that I spent my whole life assuming that, well, I couldn't do card tricks because of this gap that you're saying, oh, it's just, you just need to think about it differently. How do I make sure that they're not burning a hole in my hand with their gaze? And so this is true for everybody, that there are things that we just don't even recognize that we're seeing in a not productive way. So I'm still catching up from that.
Okay.
From that.
Deep thoughts from the magician.
Exactly. No, it's so true that we live a life and we assume that what we perceive is the undeniable truth.
Yeah.
And the undeniable truth is so subjective.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's your magic career has been built on the subjectivity of reality. And so you show people things that are real, but in their head they assume it can't be possible.
Right.
There's no way you could find that card. There's no way you could. I saw in he's got a whole case here that's got all sorts of stuff. I have a much smaller case of stuff that I've collected over the years. But
I have entire cabinets at home.
So the sponge balls and several decks of cards, and I have one of my favorites is the Invisible Deck, and Invisible Deck, great one. Stripper decks. Do they call them something different now?
No, they still call them stripper decks. Yeah.
Just makes it really easy to do. Incredible.
I personally don't use gimmick decks.
Okay.
Should explain that. What gimmicked means from a magician standpoint is something that's not exactly as it seems. Yeah. That it's something that's been tampered with for the purposes of doing magic. But I don't like to use gimmick decks for two reasons. One, I am extremely rough on a deck of cards. I'll go through, if I do a stage show, I'll go through 3 decks of cards.
Wow.
And these are $3-4 a pack. Stripper decks, $20 a pack. No, thank you.
Right.
And so that's the first part. The other part is I really like doing sleight of hand and stuff like that. I used to, I've softened on this a lot. I used to hate the idea of gimmicks. I wanted to be able to do everything just with pure skill alone. That's the way, because that's what I liked. That's how I got into magic, was I liked fiddling with a deck of cards and getting those delicate movements down. Now I don't know that I care as much, but I still really like that. And now it's cheaper for me to do magic because I can do it with a regular deck of cards.
Right.
So.
And you could borrow a deck, and
I can borrow a deck.
That it's not gimmicked. So
the other day I went to do a show and I realized I had left my case at home. And so I always have a deck of cards in my pocket. I found a paper clip and I borrowed a Sharpie, and I managed to perform for an hour with just those things.
Wow.
And that's, just because that's the way I like to do it is, when I actually go to do a show, then there's a lot more junk that goes into it, especially if I do a stage show. I've gotten so that, it's like 3 heavy trips in and stuff, but I like that I can get out there and just do an hour with just a deck of cards, a paper clip, and a Sharpie.
That's cool. So I've got one more question, and I was thinking it'd be fun to have you show a trick, and that would not be very exciting for the people who are just listening. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
But what have we not talked about that you think would be helpful for somebody who thinks that there's no reason to pursue anything outside of it's not worth the time, it's not worth the money, it's not worth the energy, it's not worth the hassle to pursue something outside of a traditional 9-to-5?
Yeah, there's a couple things. I mean, one is I think when you're happy, everything gets easier. Maybe not happy, but when you're super stressed out, then everything takes longer. Mm-hmm. You can't think as clearly. You can't stay as focused. Everything is harder. And I say this because this is 100% exactly what I struggle with most of the time. My brain is always on, but it's not always on something useful.
Right.
And if I can make myself take the time to pull away from that and do something that is not explicitly beneficial, mm-hmm. then when I come back, everything's easier.
Right.
It's amazing. You take a 5-minute walk, mm-hmm. and then you come back and you get an entire day's worth of work done in 30 minutes or something like that, whereas if you don't take that 5-minute walk, you won't even finish your day's work. It's so the things that you enjoy can, if you put yourself in a position where you're happier and more relaxed doing things that you enjoy, not even all the time, but you're including things that you enjoy. I think it makes everything easier. And then when you're happier, it's easier to get along with you. Mm-hmm. And those things start to compound. I am trying to force myself to not spend so much time doom scrolling.
Right.
Because I feel like that's exactly what that's robbing me of.
Right.
Is those few minutes where I decompress, reset my brain, and go, I'm filling it right now by scrolling through things on my phone. And I don't think it's helpful. It's really, really hard to stop. It's designed just like, they designed cell phones using research that they did in casinos, where they want people to stay on that, keep pulling that lever, keep dumping money in. And that's exactly the way the cell phones work. And it addicts us. And I mean, it's just downright addictive. And it's an addictive behavior that I have. And I wish I could quit. And I keep trying to, but I keep finding myself falling back into it. But I think, having some kind of hobby, and whether or not you choose to make it another job, because that comes with, there's pluses and minuses to that. But, I think that helps. It gives you something else to do. It's a different state for your brain to be in. Yeah. And it's different for everybody. We talked about, you mentioned, not everybody has to do magic. Well, of course not. Right. Part of the reason I do magic is because there's just an itch in my brain that it scratches. And I wouldn't recommend it really as a hobby to anybody that doesn't have that itch in your brain, because I will sit there and I will do the same thing over and over again and I'll be watching TV or something like that, but I'll do it for a solid hour. It works for me to do that. Yeah. Same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And that sucks if you don't like it.
That's right.
It's no fun whatsoever. And I don't think anybody should do that unless they like it. Now, there's other approaches to magic. If they want to do magic a different way, like mentalism generally doesn't require you to sit there and practice the same move over and over again. I'm talking about, card manipulation and stuff like that. But so there's other ways. I'm not saying don't do magic, because I like getting people involved in magic. Don't get me wrong. But, there's parts of it that if you don't like that sort of thing, then it's not going to be relaxing for you. So you got to find what works for you. And then when you do, things get easier, I think. Yeah. So
I think that's true. It's nice to have something that you can look forward to.
Yeah.
So I've had a blast.
Me too.
This has been fun. And if people wanted to learn more about you, find you, follow you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
I mean, my website's amazingbarry.com.
Okay, it's easy to remember.
Yeah, that's why I go with Amazing Barry. The only problem is, if you look up Amazing Barry, a lot of times you get the Amazing Barry Sanders. So he's apparently more amazing than I am. But I will say there is another Amazing Barry, I think somewhere out in the UK somewhere, but I think my profile is higher than his.
Perfect.
So, but yeah, that's probably the best way to get in touch with me. If you wanted to come out and see me at some point, the best place to do that right now, assuming it happens again this year, and I don't see any reason that it wouldn't, because it goes so well every year, Sullivan's Allisonville Nursery on Allisonville and Fishers. During the month of October, they do their Pumpkin Town. Okay. And I am the resident magician out there. Now, I hire other magicians because it's more than I can do by myself. Okay. But if you get the opportunity to come out to Sullivan's Pumpkin Town, especially if you have kids, because there's tons and tons for the kids to do, but there's also a bar for the adults.
The important stuff.
And I mean, you got to keep everybody entertained. I mean, the adults are allowed to climb on the hay bales and ride the giant spider that they've got there and go trick or treating, but the adults seem to like the bar more than any of that stuff.
That makes sense.
And we're out there doing magic, and I hire the best magicians around that I know that are willing to do that sort of thing, and so come out and visit me out there. That's a good place.
Yeah, swing by, say hi.
Yeah.
So I have never been to the Pumpkin Fest that they've done.
It's only been going on for 5 years, something like that. think your kids are really
They're older
older
now.
than that. Yeah, so it's understandable, but yeah, it is really kind of interesting. It's almost like they picked up It's a Small World from Disney World and plopped it right down in the middle of Fisher's. You know, they've got animatronics.
Oh, wow.
So you get on the train and you ride through, and there's animatronics, and you know, they tell jokes and play music, and then you get to Pumpkin Town, and then they have the magician, and they've got carnival games, and they've got trick or treating, and all those sorts of things. So I think it's I think it's good value for its money. They're really good to me out there.
Good.
I enjoy performing for them. I think they enjoy having us. So yeah, that's turned out to be very. I was a little nervous getting started with it. I didn't think it was going to work out very well, and I was very wrong. So just from some of the logistical standpoints, not because I thought it was a bad idea, but I thought I'd have trouble finding magicians that wanted to work it with me, and so I did not. It's been quite the opposite. Everybody's loved being part of it. So yeah.
Well, if you're local, then come out and see Barry at the Pumpkin Fest. And thanks for listening. We will see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Get back to the work you love, where you face less stress, gain more happiness, and live into your purpose. Let me help you become unstuck and unstoppable so you can finally have the life you want. Head over to my website to connect with me at kenwilliamscoaching.com.